Welcome to Fake Presidents, a real podcast about, well, you know.
Each episode will take a deep dive into a fictional American president from pop culture to see just how much fiction there really is.
I'm Eric Buckman, a former political consultant turned TV writer.
And I'm Ben Oren, a former journalist, sometimes speechwriter, and all-the-time TV producer.
And today, we're going to head back into the world of television, which we have not been in a while.
In a long time. I don't think since the 1600 Penn episode.
We've touched on TV in our bonus episodes. Yeah, but we have not covered a whole... No, For All Mankind was a TV series.
Oh, that's true. The For All Mankind. That was a couple of weeks ago, according to the numbering of the podcast.
If we were a weekly show, that would be like 2 weeks ago. For a monthly show, you know, we were
2 months ago.
Biannually show.
About right.
Yeah, it was a few fortnights ago. Anyway, we're going back into the world of television to cover the fake presidents of the Jack Ryan TV series on Amazon Prime.
Wait, all of them? I only did the third one. I didn't go back and watch all the other episodes.
You don't have to. I got you covered, Ben.
Okay.
How dare you come into this office and bark at me like some little junkyard dog? I am the President of the United States.
Even though one of our more favorite drops that we use as a bumper comes from a Jack Ryan movie, Clear and Present Danger, we have yet to cover any actual Jack Ryan products.
Yeah, he's been around, since I don't know when the book series by Tom Clancy debuted, but as a character, he's been around since the early 90s?
As a movie character, yeah. As a book character, Clancy's career took off in the 80s, and I actually want to say they took off specifically because Ronald Reagan himself referenced reading a Tom Clancy book.
No, we first saw him on screen as Alec Baldwin played him in Hunt for Red October.
Yeah.
Then Harrison Ford took over the mantle for how many movies? 3 movies?
2 movies.
2 movies.
Just 2.
He was old, and he was an older Jack Ryan at that point.
At that time, he was an older Jack Ryan, and it feels like there's 3 because he's basically playing the Jack Ryan character as president in Air Force One.
Then we got Ben Affleck took over the role.
Some of All Fears.
For just one time?
One time. What was interesting about that is you have Morgan Freeman returning yet again to a fake president movie, except this time he's not the president, but he's in the administration of a president played by James Cromwell, who was in that Morgan Freeman administration in Deep Impact. So he's kind of switch roles, yeah.
So a little switcheroos. Maybe they were like, you know what? Let's just switch and see if anybody notices. I know what I was hired for. I know what you were hired for, but I don't think anybody's paying attention on this set. What if we look a lot alike?
You joke, but Morgan Freeman would have been great in Babe.
And then Chris Pine played him.
And Kevin Costner was also in that movie playing his mentor figure. Kind of I don't think there was a Greer in that one. Greer being the character who was usually played by James Earl Jones.
Oh, in the series played by Wendell Pierce, a.k.a. Bunk.
From The Wire, I'm assuming it's a Wire reference?
From The Wire, that's a Wire reference. But now we have John Krasinski, who's been playing Jack Ryan for 3 seasons now.
3 and going on 4.
Probably now, in terms of pure man hours, he's played Jack Ryan more than anybody, longer than anybody.
I'd say human hours, Ben. I think in hours by any gender.
No, I checked with him, and when I checked with him, I checked on him. And let me tell you, that John Krasinski, 100% man.
Damn you, Krasinski! You are sexy!
I met him once before, at the very beginning. I met him at a Barnes & Noble.
Oh.
At the Grove. He was there with somebody. He was dating a friend of a friend.
Oh, so this is pre-Blunt.
Yes.
Yeah. It's Emily Blunt. That's what I was referring to.
Yes. This had to be beginning of Office days.
Interesting.
Yeah. No way did I think that this skinny beanpole of a man would ever be an action hero.
I think we can thank Michael Bay for that.
Yeah.
Because he was in that Benghazi-centric movie.
13 hours.
But apparently he likes holding a gun.
He's good. He's a good Jack Ryan.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's a good Jack Ryan. It's a role that, how do you mess it up, though? He's kind of like the Mary Sue of men, and that he's supposed to be one part in over his head, but one part great at everything. A little naive, but also a little worldly.
And he never has enough information to convince people that he's right.
There's so many dimensions to the character that no matter who you cast, you're going to hit on something. Like Chris Pine and John Krasinski, no one would confuse the two of them in the roles that they played. You wouldn't put Chris Pine in The Office. No. But yet they both can play Jack Ryan credibly.
I think the key thing to play Jack Ryan is knowing when to run away. I think like not every action star can run away. I think maybe even like The Rock has it in his contract that he never runs away. But knowing when it's like, okay, now is not the time to fight, I think is a key component to the character that all of the people who've played him have been able to do. But I'm just an analyst.
Even though, I mean, by season 3 of this show, he's kind of a superhero.
Oh, he's Jack Bauer.
My name is Andrew Shepard, and I am the president.
Do you want to talk about the people behind the scenes and any characters before we hop into story?
Well, we covered Krasinski.
Krasinski.
We covered Wendell Pierce.
Wendell Pierce. It was created by Carlton Cuse and Graham Rowland. Carlton Cuse, very well-known TV writer, best known for Lost.
Oh, I was going to say NASH Bridges.
He created NASH Bridges. So before Lost, that's why Lost, if anybody wants to know why Lost was like so all over the place, it's because when a creator has what we call in the business, fuck you money, they could do whatever they want. And Carlton has fuck you money from doing 6 seasons of NASH Bridges.
Now, he didn't create Lost, which was officially created by J.J. Abrams, Damon Lindelof, and Jeffrey Lieber, though Lieber's inclusion on the credits is a story in itself, as he didn't work with Abrams or Lindelof at all. But you are right to reference NASH Bridges, because Damon Lindelof was a writer on that show, which is how he knows Carlton Cuse. And after Lost got picked up to series, and JJ said to Damon, I gotta go make some Mission Impossible movies. See you later, dude. You got this, right, Damon? And Damon's like, yeah, I got this. Apparently Damon got 6 or 7 episodes in and was like,
I do not got this at all.
And so he goes to, very smartly, look, I'll give anyone credit who makes a phone call to someone else saying, I'm in a little over my head here. Come bring your expertise in and let's right this ship and make sure that this ship keeps sailing, because I don't want to flame out in 1 season.
Dead. Let's just flame out in 3 seasons.
No, they got 6 seasons strong. They made a smart decision early on to do something that seems almost like prescient. They're like, why are we doing 22 episodes a season? Let's do 15 and make it more manageable, which is like even 15 now seems like, why are you doing that many episodes? But yeah, no, he brings the Carlton Cuse there. And so then we get into the Lost that we know today happened midway through the first season, when Carlton comes in earnest to help lighten the load off of Damon's back, and which is how we ultimately get Jack Ryan, co-created by Carlton Cuse?
Cuse? Yeah. Cuse?
But anyway, so you have Carlton. If I just say his first name, I'm obviously picturing a very different Carlton.
Yeah, of course. You're thinking from Fresh
Alfonso
Prince.
Riviere, yeah. Yeah, that Carlton helped co-create this show.
Make like a tree and leave. I never say that. It's make like a banana and split.
It streams on Amazon Prime, which obviously was very interested in doing a Jack Ryan TV series, because for a while they wanted to do things based off of books. That's why they're doing Reacher now, because remember, Amazon at one point was a bookseller. Mm-hmm. Like, you didn't see John Krasinski in an Amazon. You saw him in a Barnes & Noble. Well, you could. Before they're nearly put out of business by Amazon.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that was kind of the decision-making there. And so any talk of doing future movies was pretty much sequestered to make this TV version of Jack Ryan the one true Jack Ryan.
Yeah, renditioned. Put a bag over the book's head, like, you're coming with us.
Yeah. That said, even though it's called Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, the plots from these 3 seasons so far, although they have echoes of plots from the books, they're in no way direct adaptions of any stories as written by Tom Clancy.
So they could be adapted as books. That would be very old school.
The novelization of Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan.
Tom Clancy presents Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan.
It's like when we were in high school and they came out with Bram Stoker's Dracula, which had its own novelization called Bram Stoker's Dracula, which was a direct novelization of the movie Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Not written by Bram Stoker.
Yeah. The first book was better.
Yeah.
Get off my plane.
Yeah, so Ben, before we jump into season 3, though, I do want to do a quick rundown of the fake presidents of seasons 1 and 2, just so we can say that we have adequately and comprehensively covered the fake presidents of Jack Ryan.
I watched both seasons when they initially came out. I just don't remember the fake presidents. I remember the first season, it was your typical like Middle Eastern terrorist plot story.
Yes.
The second one took us to South America.
Yes, that is correct. The first season, you got to see, I call him Michael Gaston. I'm guessing he pronounced it Gaston. Look, I've got 3 daughters. It's Gaston.
Gaston.
But Michael Gaston, he plays President Pickett.
Oh, that's a young president. Am I thinking of a different Michael Gaston?
This guy's easily in his 50s, maybe even his 60s now.
Oh, you know who I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of
Michael Vartan?
maybe Michael Vartan.
Vartan? No, not Michael Vartan from Alias.
No, I'm thinking of that country singer who has like the big boobs.
Dolly Parton?
No, that's Dolly Parton.
Okay. No, but the main A story of that season does involve Jack Ryan, analyst turned field agent, as he tries to help the wife and child of a Middle Eastern terrorist escape and defect to America, basically. And that same terrorist, meanwhile, he has captured a bunch of doctors from a Doctors Without Borders-like group. One of those doctors is friends with the fake president, President Pickett. Yeah, the president approves a mission to kill the terrorist Osama style, like a SEAL Team 6 type thing, while rescuing his friend and the other doctors. When SEAL Team 6 arrives, the terrorist is not there, but they do get the doctors, bring him back to America, where the president gets to see his old friend and shake hands with him, at which point it's discovered that the doctors have been exposed and infected with Ebola.
Ooh.
So now you get to see, was that their real plan? Infect them with Ebola? Get them rescued so that they can infect the president? No, that's not the real plan. They wanted the president to be exposed to just enough Ebola to trigger a quarantine protocol where he's taken to a special hospital. And that's where the ultimate takedown of the season will occur, because they want to take over the ventilation system of this hospital to spread like some super radioactive isotope of cesium to kill the president and send America into chaos. But Jack Ryan is able to stop the entire thing.
That is a convoluted plan.
That's season 1. And so the president in that movie, President Pickett, played by Michael Gaston, he is really just like a human MacGuffin. He's just a thing, an object to be saved, and not much more than that. And then season 2, there is no American fake president. That the action takes place mostly in South America, in Venezuela, and the backdrop of the season is an election for a new Venezuelan president. You have an incumbent who is corrupt and autocratic, and he's being challenged by a woman who's a true reformer, a woman who is portrayed as being so moral and good and right. I kept waiting for the other shoe to fall, where you find out, what's her skeleton in her closet.
Yeah.
And then I remembered, oh no, this is a Tom Clancy type book, which exists in black and white. And so in season 2 is the backdrop of this election. It culminates in a rigged election to keep the incumbent in power. But fortunately, Jack Ryan and his CIA friends are able to intervene to get the election halted.
I mean, we could have used him in 2020. I mean, am I right there? That one was for that was for our Q people.
Which now takes us, Ben, to season 3.
Season 3.
And what's cool about this season of Jack Ryan is they said, you know what we did not have enough of in seasons 1 and 2? We didn't have enough fake presidents.
No.
Why have just one? Let's have 3. Yeah. And who are the fake presidents that we meet this season?
Well, there are 3 fake. We only concentrate on American fake presidents, although we have, the show has been optioned into other countries. Yeah. So if you go on to Apple Russia, you'll see that there is a fake president's Russia that looks at fake Russian presidents, and there's also there's a Czech version of the show that will cover the fake Czech president in this. But yeah, we have the fake president, President Charles Bockler, played by stage actor David Bidella. I had to look up how to say his name because there's 2 L's in it. It could be a Bidea, but it's not. It's a Bidella. He's well known in England. He's an American actor, but he won an Olivier Award for playing Jerry Springer in Jerry Springer the Opera. And he also, for a long time, was in Rocky Horror Picture Show on the stage version there. He's a beloved. He's beloved on the stage in London's West End.
So do we not want to give any lip service to the other fake presidents?
We can. I think a quickie. I mean, it's not. I mean, not to be like America first, but I mean...
America first. Well, I do think it's worth mentioning just because you do have a Shecky.
We have a Shrek president played by Michael Myers.
A lot of this season takes place in Prague because one of the main characters of the season is a Czech president named Elena Kovac, who is in many, just like season 2, a reformer who's elevated to the title of presidency to help guide their country towards the light.
Yes, towards NATO, which is NATO.
NATO, which actually kind of, the reason why I think it's worth mentioning is that's one that does kind of line up with the current international politics, and that the Czech Republic really did recently elect a president who rejects its more recent turns towards autocracy and towards Putin-type politics. And then the other president that we meet is a Russian president who I think is worth mentioning because this is not Putin at all, in no way. In fact, and many times during the season, it gets referenced that this president is concerned about getting reelected.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is something
Putin has never worried about for some reason.
And I think it's safe to say that without spoiling anything, this season takes a lot of cues from Sum of All Fears, the original Tom Clancy novel, because the basic storyline of the season is about some group of, I hate using the word terrorists.
They're rogue Russianists?
Rogue Soviets?
Soviets who long for the days of yore where Russia was a world power to be feared, where they weren't a country full of bureaucrats and criminals.
Yeah, but basically it's about this third-party group that's neither aligned with the East or West or with Russia or with the Czech Republic or America, that's trying to basically start World War III. They want to use a stolen nuclear device to trigger hostilities, like armed hostilities between the East and the West.
And in order for them to take back a large swath of Eastern Europe. Basically, Jack Ryan wants to stop what's called the Sokol Project, which is a plan to sow unrest in Eastern Europe in tiny ways so that it could lead to war. It turns out that this is based off of like a real wave of thought that's taught called the Small Wars Doctrine, which says that it's not the big things that set off international conflicts. It's many tiny things, such as tiny things like, like assassinations. And ultimately, they want to have a limited nuclear strike, which would then set off a larger war between the East and the West.
Yeah.
And by doing it, by forcing Russia into war, they know the playbooks of both sides, so they know exactly how to escalate every situation. And by knowing what each side is going to do next, they know what the ultimate outcome could be.
And it's up to Jack Ryan to make sure that doesn't happen.
Not on his watch.
Not on his watch. But if you've read Sum of All Fears or seen the earlier movie, you do know that at some point during the season, a nuclear device will go off.
Boom, boom.
Hostilities will raise. DEFCON levels will go up or down, depending on which is worse in the country that you're in. And it's up to just one person, one human being, to try to rationalize between two presidents and two potentially hostile nations to get them to calm down.
Yeah, just chill out, guys. Take a breath. You don't have to do everything by the book. What does your gut tell you?
As I realized, this is Some of All Fears they're doing. They throw in a Hunt for
Red October. A little Hunt for Red October in there, yeah.
Yeah, they have John Krasinski having to be helicoptered onto a naval vessel in order to convince the ship that he's on that his Russian counterpart in another ship is actually on their side and wants to work with them.
So yeah, that's what is guiding Jack throughout this adventure. There's not many people who believe Jack because he gets his information from a Russian asset along the way. The people who do believe him, James Greer, played by Wendell Pierce, who's a CA lifer. There's Elizabeth Wright, who's played by Betty Gabriel, who I've never seen her as an actress before, but she starts as the station chief in Rome and doesn't really buy what Jack's selling, but by the end, she's part of the team and she makes some huge leaps career-wise. Michael Kelly plays a guy named Mike November.
From season 2.
From season 2. Yeah. He was a CIA guy in Venezuela in season 2. Now he has a private security firm. He's actually always fun. I always thought of him as a very dry actor, but I've enjoyed him more over time. Because we first met him in a series which we will never cover on the show, maybe the last season, I don't know. But most likely we will never talk about that fake president. But yeah, he's quite enjoyable. He is fun. And then there's a whole bunch of, Russian actors who play key roles in this TV series, both who are bad guys and also who are good guys. And some in the middle. They used to be bad, now they're good. Hey, what's the morality? You know what I mean? People change.
Yeah, at one point, Jack Ryan has to partner with somebody who they say was like a human trafficker. And by the end of their scenes together, you're like, oh, this is a pretty good guy.
Yeah.
Like, no, you told us he was a human trafficker. Don't make us like him now.
But his number one ally on the Russian side is a guy named Luka, who's a shadowy figure who's been in the military, who advises the current Russian president, who is as Russian as they come. But once he's aware of this conspiracy to make Sokol real, to make World War III happen, he works every angle in order to get information to Jack and also to work his side to see who's really behind the whole operation.
Because it turns out that we'll call them the bad guys, this group of Russian Czech separatists working together to reunify the Soviet Union, it's actually being headed up by the Czech president's own father.
Bum, bum, bum.
Because it turns out, he was born in the Soviet Union, and even though the Czech Republic became its own thing, his heart never left.
His heart, you know what his heart's color is and what it beats? It's red.
Red, okay. Yes.
Unlike other people.
Yeah.
His blood is red.
This is a presidential favor.
Yeah, let's focus on our president, President Backler. This is an 8-episode series. We don't even see him till episode 7. We get to the White House in episode 6.
With the VP.
With the VP Robert Fleming, who's in the Situation Room. And this is after a failed raid happened to intercept the radioactive weapon of mass destruction, the nuclear device. And he is pissed that they didn't know what they were dealing with, that it was a firefight, everything. And with that, in walks Elizabeth Wright, former head of the office in Rome. She's been working with Jack, the director of the CIA, relieved her of her duties, sent her back to the States. She's able to make some maneuvers, get into the White House to tell the VP what's going on.
Yes.
What's really going on. And with that, the VP tells her, you're in charge of the show. Which I'm like,
well,
the VP has this power?
All we heard about the president up to this point is the fact that the current head of the CIA is a presidential appointee and like an old crony friend of his. And we do meet this guy, and this guy, he's a suit. You get the sense that this is a guy who, before now, like he was working on healthcare policy or something.
Oh, never. This dude was never in the field.
He was a campaigner. The guy was probably, working behind the scenes to do polling or something for the president. And this was his big payday for winning. He gets to be head of the CIA.
CIA chief, yeah.
And he's not very good at it. He is thinking politically the entire time. He's not thinking strategically. And ultimately, he doesn't see the move coming to oust him by Wright's character.
Well, you know why he doesn't trust Russia? There's a telltale sign in his office. He doesn't trust Russia.
Oh, what is that? I missed it.
He has a hockey jersey of the USA up on it. Going back to 1980.
Miracle on Ice.
Yeah, the Miracle on Ice.
Yeah, the Russians hate that.
Oh, yeah. In case any Russian comes into his office, he's like, what do you think of that? Vladimir. Like, my name's not Vladimir. So, and then finally in episode 7, we finally get to meet the president.
Yes.
He's in the Oval Office, and Wright is brought in to meet him. The office is filled with advisors, including the VP, and sitting there is Charles Backler, and he gets straight into it, and he wants to be brought up to speed by Wright. And basically what's happened since we last saw Wright is that the nuclear device did go off in the Czech Republic. Jack Ryan prevented it from killing thousands of people. He had it set up so that it would explode in an underground tunnel. So the president wants to know who's responsible for this. Is this terrorism? Is this an undeclared nuclear power? And so Wright gives the spiel. It's a rogue, hardline Russians who want to goad U.S. into war with Russia, that the people behind it, it's the father of the president of the Czech Republic, and the Russian defense minister is the chief baddie within the government who's trying to take away power from the Russian president. And the POTUS wants to know, is this a theory or something actionable? And all Wright has is like, I got Jack Ryan telling me all this, so maybe you should believe me. And that's not good enough.
It's kind of a theory.
But at this point, Jack's been right about everything.
But that's just it. At no point did anyone say, yeah, this is the guy who saved the president's life 2 years ago.
Yeah, let's check his files. What's going on with this Jack Ryan character? Who is this guy you're talking about?
It's maybe a good thing that there's such a long delay between seasons because it did keep me from asking those questions.
Yes, but instead, the president, he's listening to his advisors. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff says that the Russians are gearing for war, and the advisors want to, go by the playbook. The playbook, which the rogue Russians know that the U.S. is going to do. But they want them to escalate, which is they're going to go from DEFCON 1 to DEFCON 2.
No, isn't the smaller the number?
Is it DEFCON? They want to go from DEFCON 3 to DEFCON 2? DEFCON 1's the worst?
Yeah, 3 is like normal tenseness. And I think 1
DEFCON
is
1's
like,
the worst?
oh shit, I think 1's the
DEFCON
worst.
1. Okay, then we're at DEFCON 2 then. Then shit. I didn't really, that really amps up the tension then. I did not take it as seriously as I should have when I watched the show.
You have to rewatch
But basically, the president won't do anything about what Wright's telling him until Jack and the team have something concrete. And he tells the chairman of the Joint Chiefs to explore more direct options. Which probably just means moving troops around, more saber rattling, but that's where we leave off the president, and we don't see him again until the end of the episode.
Yes. Now, how are you pronouncing his name?
I'm pronouncing it many different ways.
I think it's Bachelor?
Bachelor? President Bachler. President Bachelor is a show that I'm pitching next week.
I'd watch that. It's all about James Buchanan.
It's basically based off of American President. I know something's going to happen with Jill that's coming out.
Ben.
No, she's safe. She's okay.
Still, look, the man has
They
lost
love each
enough.
other.
The man has lost enough, Ben.
Look, he understands what President Bachelor can do for his image. You need a president that's fuckable. We all know this.
But here's the problem that I have. It's the reason why both Ben and I don't know how to pronounce Bachelor, Bachler.
Nobody ever says his fucking name.
Yeah, it's always the president, which is what you do when you don't cast the person as a president. In real life, no one's referring to Biden as anything but Biden.
Yeah.
Unless you're in the room with the president and you have to be respectful, you're not just referring to people by their titles.
No. As we've seen, come on, Joe, we did it. And that's pretty good. That's a good impersonation. Joe.
You know what? I have to go inform the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. No, you say I have to go inform Betty.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's where we end there. And
we're not even there yet. And end of episode, this is where we're getting into the hunt for Red October of it all. Yeah. The rogue Russians have got a naval captain on their side who's going to be taking a ship out, a naval ship called the Fearless.
Yeah.
Out into water.
Specifically designed, more so than any other Russian naval vessel, to attack the U.S. fleet.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the warship of warships.
Yeah, and it's going... First, the Russian president's like, people can be on the ship, but the ship needs to stay here. I don't want to see the ship out in sea. The ship needs to be at the dock. Well, you know what the Russian Secretary of Defense did? He's like, you could take it out to sea. Don't worry. Nobody will know until it's too late. And so the naval captain, he's ready for war. And Wright tells the president this. In the Situation Room, tells all the advisors, this is what's happening right now. But you know what? That's not good enough for the president, because he says, I need actionable, verifiable intelligence. And since she hasn't heard from Jack in a bit, instead the president wants to hear from his advisors. And all of them want him to escalate the situation, because that's what the book says.
Yeah.
But so no matter what Wright tells the president, it's not good enough. You got to cite your sources. You need backup. I need more. I need photos? He needs documents? What does he need? What would make this president happy?
Yeah, and let's not forget, all this is happening not just after this nuclear weapon went off in a tunnel in the Czech Republic, but also after a member of the Russian president's cabinet was assassinated.
That was an inciting incident.
Yeah, which also has been framed on the Americans. So the Americans are feeling double heat here.
Yeah, and at no point does President Bachelor ever decide to be like, you know what? I'm going to pick up the phone, call my Russian president cohort, see what's going on. Maybe he's going to lie to me, maybe not, but let me just hear his voice.
It has a very Cold War mindset in the idea that these two heads of states will only talk if you're on the verge of World War III. Otherwise, it's all done through intermediaries and back-channel communications.
And nobody's even like, well, I talked to my guy over there and he's really pissed off that we're doing this. None of that. Nobody's even, they're just hunkered down in the Situation Room.
Meanwhile, the recently elected Russian president, who's already lost his first, I guess, their equivalent of the Secretary of Defense, it turns out the replacement Secretary of Defense is corrupt and is in league with the separatists, the people trying to reform the Soviet Union.
He seems like he's the leader of it all.
They're basically pulling off a coup of their own during this whole last episode. They're gathering the votes that they need amongst the high-ranking members of the Russian
military.
They're basically trying to 25th Amendment the Russian president.
Oh, see, it was funny because I couldn't tell. It looked like it was just a room full of generals, and he was just like, "So, who's down with this coup? Raise your hands." No. I didn't know it was like an official like.
Oh, I thought they were taking the vote to be like, who does not think this person has the mental wherewithal to continue in this office? He's too compromised because of earlier actions in the season. But we'll save that for our counterparts in Russian for their fake Russian presidents podcast to get into. Yeah,
we'll talk with them when they bring comrades. They're good guys.
Wait till our crossover episode
with fake presidents with Brezhnev and.
Trying to think what's the Russian version of Eric.
What's the Russian version of Eric?
Eric?
Eroski? Anyway, so now shit's really hitting the fan. We got these two huge warships in the Baltic coming at each other, and the White House calls the American battleship. The president doesn't speak. He identifies himself. He goes, Hank Gallen, Sec Def, which I'm like, wait, what? I'd never even heard. I didn't know that, like, the cabinet people referred to themselves as this. If you're the Secretary of Defense, you're like, nah, I'm Sec Def. Like, is it Secretary of Labor's like, I'm Sec Lab. Sec HUD.
I thought Sec Def was
like
name.
Pete Buttigieg would never be like, I'm Sec Trans. It never happened. This is crazy. This is crazy talk. Somebody must have been fucking with them when they were like, the writers like went to somebody in government. They're like, we really want like legit, like to get the dialogue right and real. Well, and they're like, the guy's like, you know what the Secretary of Defense calls himself? Sec Def. Oh, that's good stuff. And they're like,
it's like how Robert Reich used to call himself the little labor.
Little labor. That was his rap name. He released a lot of bumping tracks on SoundCloud. Little labor.
Think your grocery bill is high now? Just wait. A massive corporate merger could send skyrocketing food prices through the stratosphere.
But they're talking about the Russian movement out there and that they need to assume that attack is probable. And again, these are all the moves that the rogue Russians want. And throughout this, the president is just sitting there looking concerned. Yeah. Then the Russians they send out the first shot, a missile. The U.S. blows it up. And right now, Jack is on the U.S. destroyer. He managed to get onto that naval ship. And he's just trying to convince the naval commander there, like, don't do it. This is the end game. They know exactly what you're going to do. And this dude's like not having it.
Jack's on the destroyer representing the U.S. intel community.
Yeah.
Luca is on the Russian ship representing the Russian intel community. And they're each trying to convince their respective crews not to do what the crews think they have orders to do.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, Greer and other characters we met throughout the season are in the Kremlin.
Yeah.
Sneaking around.
Well, look, the same way as we learned in our very first episode, Dave.
Oh, yes. Every presidential palace has its secret tunnels.
Yes! They watched Dave, obviously, and they're like, well, if the White House can have secret tunnels, then the Kremlin could have secret tunnels.
Yeah. So they sneak in there. And so while this coup is going on to oust the president, they are walking amongst the halls of the Kremlin trying to...
The catacombs. The catacombs of the Kremlin.
Well, they get in the actual building itself.
Eventually, yes.
In order so that they can more directly prevent that coup from happening.
But meanwhile, back in the Situation Room at the White House, Sec Def is telling POTUS, that since the Russians sent out the first missile, this is an act of war, and with their ship right now, they could blow the Russians out of the water. And Wright is in there now giving them the old, like, Jack Ryan, this is exactly what they want. It wasn't ordered by the Russian president. We're being baited. They don't give a shit about that. And while all this is happening, the person who actually saves the day is Luca. The Russians. He's the one who's able to convince the second in command of the Russian ship, to basically take out the rogue Russian who's leading them. But everything's okay. Situation Room calls president asks the U.S. captain if there's any threat from the Russian ship. Are we under attack? But the U.S. captain says, we're all good. And the Fearless, the Russian ship, is heading back to Russia. So then back in the Situation Room later, everyone is hanging out, shaking hands, rehashing all the fun that they had today. And even though, they didn't fucking do anything, they're just sitting there, the president approaches Wright, and he says that he made a mistake with Miller, having Miller as the head of the CIA. Mm-hmm. But he learns from his mistakes. And he looks at her and says, congratulations, Director Wright.
Which we have to presume is not long for her, because there's no way they end this series without Greer becoming head of the CIA like he does in the books, right? Yeah, because the plan is season 4, they are going to wrap up the Jack Ryan storyline, introduce Michael Pena as a new character to give him a spin-off in future series.
I'm about that. Michael Pena was great in Narcos, Mexico.
Yeah. And this is concurrent with the Without Remorse universe of movies starring Michael B. Jordan as the Willem Dafoe character from Clear and Present Danger.
I love it. Then they're all going to come back together Avenger style for something. Yes.
Possibly.
Finally, the president peels away from Wright because his assistant's like, I got President Surikov from Russia on the line for you. It's like, well, it's about time you two talked. Jesus.
How? Because I'm the goddamn president of the United States of America.
So what do we know about President Batchelor?
Terrible choice in CIA directors.
Yes. Well, he likes to. How many other people in that room were his buddies?
Yeah, we have to talk about the fact, and the reason why I wanted to cover the first season president is that President Pickett, he goes through, a pretty big attempt on his life, a pretty big attack on U.S. soil, which we've talked about in the past, almost always galvanizes the public around the head of state, around the president at that time. So the fact that he's not the president now means he either lost re-election or he was term limited out, or something else that maybe did catch him. Or something else happened. But I'm going to have to guess this guy would have been a shoo-in for re-election. The fact that he's not means that he was term limited out, and at no point has this character been referenced as a past VP.
Yeah, we didn't get to see any portraits in the White House, so who knows?
Yeah, but he's definitely a first-termer in his own right. I'm going to guess someone who was politically aligned with Pickett, if not a VP, because it feels like that party had a lot going for it, a lot of momentum going into that upcoming election. Unless it was used against, look, there's attack on our soil. There was cesium in your ventilation system. You know how bad, American public, we hate cesium. So maybe he's an opposing political figure.
Doesn't seem to be much of a military guy.
No. And in fact, that does fit with the Clancy of it all. In the book, The Sum of All Fears, of which this storyline comes from, Clancy did make the president there a Democrat. Because in Clancy's mind, this goes back to this connection to Reagan, he believes that a Democrat is far more likely to lead the country into nuclear war than a Republican. So he wanted a Democrat to be in office to him, it wouldn't be credible that a Republican could be goaded into such a thing.
Yeah.
Only a Democrat would be dumb enough to fall for this ruse. And so that said, this is Clancy through many different layers of interpretation. This is a play off of the movie, which came from a book, which has then been filtered again through the Amazon Prime ecosystem, given the Lost treatment from Carlton Cuse.
Oh, yeah, because we got all the flashbacks.
Yeah, even though he's not that involved in the third season. This is the flashback season. Part of me wants to go a Democrat in that regard, but he also feels like a George W. Bush type. He feels like...
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of reasons why he feels like a Republican to me. I think he was a Republican governor who became president. Hiring of the buddies in the high positions in government feels a little Republican-y to me. The fact that he doesn't engage with the Russian president, who seems like a level-headed dude, who seems kind of like a moderate in many ways, it seems like a Republican move, that he's untrusting of what the other side can tell him. And he gives his vice president has been given a prominent role within military decisions and national security decisions, which harkens back to a George W. and Cheney relationship.
Correct. Yeah. He's not an actor. This is not a Reagan stand-in. He's not a George H.W. Bush. Was not ever piloting aircraft himself in combat. If this TV series came out as a movie, almost exactly as it is back in the 90s, I'd say, yeah, it's a Clinton stand-in easily. And Clancy would probably give his thumbs up to that assessment. I mean, in terms of appearance and youthfulness, he does have a certain Obama-esque quality. In the end, though, he's a cipher by design. Both him and the Russian president are made as boring as possible because you don't want to have Jack Ryan having to not just contend with the facts on the ground, but also with massaging egos.
Yeah. By the way, he makes terrible decisions. Like, I don't even know why he would make Wright the head of the CIA after all this, because you have to go in front of the fucking Senate to get confirmed. Like, why would this woman who knows so much about what just happened, why would you put her in front of the Senate? That's like, for me in this world, it's like if you do a good job, that means you go back to like a dingy office somewhere because you know too much.
If you're saying what she knows too much about is his own missteps, where he could have been a little more hands-on earlier on to maybe nip certain things in the bud, because she knows that, maybe that's her way, that's also her political play.
Then I would have loved to have seen like that savviness in there, because that would have been the move, to see her go for the job as opposed to it being given to her.
But I think she was going. I think her whole plan all along was to embarrass her predecessor and get him ousted. She does go around his back.
It's more because she believes in Jack as opposed to being like, this is a move. Because for 24, if it was 24, you would have seen that like career. I'll always go back to, I love 24, and because it was always like everybody always had ulterior motives. Like,
you love torture.
Part of me, torture with anything. He was like, oh, it's like shoelaces, good torture device. He's like MacGyver that way, Jack Bauer. But everybody always had other motives. You never really knew what was going on until the very end. Part of me was like, the president's in on it at one point. The VP knows what's really going on. They want war too. Like, no, that's clearly not what Tom Clancy does.
No, that's not what he does. That said, I do think Jack Ryan in the books becomes president because of a scandal that ousted one of the predecessors before him, but don't quote me on that. I just want to make sure that all our Clancy heads out there, if you've read all the books, we want to hear from you, because we're not going to read them.
Our C heads.
In terms of party, I think it's by design, that it's left very up to interpretation.
Eric, that's literally what we're supposed to do right now.
Interpret it? Yeah. Well, look, he's clearly not Trump. The Russian president is clearly not Putin, because I guess that would have been too crazy for Jack Ryan. Oh my goodness. That said, you're doing a TV series. You have the room for it. I understand why in a movie you might default to ciphers. In a TV series, there is room to explore a little more nuance there.
Yeah.
So if I had to pick, I feel like if I were to tell you right now, I'm going to flip a coin, that might sound like a cop-out, but I feel like that's what they want us to do.
Fair enough.
I feel like that's the correct answer.
Okay.
Motherfucker, I'm not asking if you're interested. I'm the president of the United fucking States, man.
Do you think the American people like President Bachelor?
No. The guy seems a little too out of his element. Like, maybe he's a great speech giver. In fact, if I had thought the people who made this were the people who made 24, if I thought there was a little more conservative bent behind the scenes, I'd say, yeah, this is their take on Obama. And so what we're not seeing are the speeches that inspire. All we're seeing is the equivocating behind the scenes, and maybe even overall a weak hand when it comes to foreign policy, which I'm not saying is what really happened in the Obama administration. I'm just saying that's a conservative interpretation of an Obama presidency, which this guy seems to fit to a T. But because I don't think they tried to evoke Obama at all, I do think they intentionally held off on introducing the president as long as they could, because they really did not want this person to be a big character.
Well, here's the thing about President Bachelor. He always stands pretty firm. Like, by doing everything by the book, the U.S. never looks weak.
Right.
That when the story breaks within the next 15 minutes that a missile was fired by a rogue Russian ship at an American boat, Americans did everything right. And because of him, because he's the president, like, nobody died.
He's predictable,
and we didn't enter, and we didn't enter war. Like, he's got a good international relations thing going on right now. Now he's even closer. He'll be even closer with Russia as a result of this, in a good way. NATO will expand. That's a good thing. President Bachelor comes out smelling like roses. I think people are going to like him even more after this.
Oh, sounds like you're getting into legacy.
Yeah.
Interesting. I will agree with that assessment, Ben, mostly because I did not think things through quite as much as you did in that regard. I was just thinking about how the American public viewed this event. You had a nuclear weapon go off somewhere other than a nuclear test site. Something that's never happened since 1945.
Yep.
So that's a pretty big deal. And they were trying to frame, an American motorcade. So I can definitely see a certain segment of the American population just based off of that being like, get our asses out of there. Why are we there at all? I think it only emboldens isolationists and, let's just say the pro-Russian contingency of America. That said, I'm not sure if that pro-Russian contingency is there in the Jack Ryan world because there's no Putin in the Jack Ryan world. So, yeah. I mean, I could say this. However, Batchelor was elected in, say, 2016. It's unclear when this takes place. It feels like it takes place pre-2020, pre-Ukrainian invasion. But let's just say Batchelor was not elected in the wake of a massive Russian disinformation campaign specifically to push him into office. I don't think that was the case at all. That mechanism does not even seem to be there since the Russian president himself is so worried about his own election, which is ultimately, look, you moved ahead to legacy. I'm going to move us ahead to what's to say about 2023. What
does it say about 2023? NATO works?
Nothing. It says jack crap about 2023 because it's so in no way reflects the actual politics of the day. I don't know how you can do a story in which Russia is a major player and have the Russian president basically be someone who's not just an anti-Putin, but they didn't ever make reference. It's not like they said, unlike my predecessor who died while in office and left no secession plan.
That would have been so funny if they were like, when Putin died in office from autoerotic asphyxiation while masturbating to donkey porn.
But
he left no clear, okay.
But maybe it's just me. I feel like if I was doing a show in which I definitely needed a Russian president to not be Putin, I would either set it in the near future and make it clear it's a post-Putin world, and it's a Russian government that's trying
It's a post-Putin planet. Post-Putin planet.
Post-Putin planet. Picked peppers. Or I would go back in time a little bit, as far back as you can to have it be credible. But I guess you can't do that here because the first two seasons clearly took place in present day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's because of that, I don't think it says much at all about 2023. I think it says a lot about 2015.
Well, I'll go with this for what it says about 2023. What they're trying to say is we keep on going by the old playbooks, and it gets us nowhere. We're doing what we're told, right? Knowing the small war doctrine that everything sort of escalates, and everybody just follows the orders, follows the book, and that leads us to war that gets us nowhere. So I'm saying we got to start thinking in other ways if we want to improve our relations and improve our governments.
Yeah.
How about that?
You're right. That's what this movie says.
Yeah.
That's also, I think, what every Jack Ryan movie says. Book, TV series, adaptation, to a certain degree, that's what makes Jack Ryan works as a character, is he's that X factor that the system didn't plan for.
That's why when he says he's just an analyst, he really is. He looks at the facts that are presented to him.
And he doesn't care about the politics.
He doesn't care about the politics, doesn't care about the conclusions that people want.
It doesn't care about whatever the book says. And so that's ultimately, if you have to define his character and what makes him different from, say, a James Bond or a Austin Powers or any other famous
international man of mystery, yes.
Yeah. Is the fact that he's able to get results within the system while not being a part of the system itself. He's not a rogue agent. It's not a chaos factor, but he's just a guy who's very good at convincing people that he's right and getting people to come to the conclusions that without being forced themselves. He's able to rationalize with people.
Yeah.
Negotiate with people, convince people what the best path is and get them to make the steps towards themselves, which ultimately is the best type of growth. Growth that you do with a gun to your head is not growth, but growth that you do away from the gun to your head, that's growth. Yeah. Pointing the gun at somebody else, that is when you really make steps forward.
That's when you're able to really change. So, Bachelor, what are our approval ratings for this guy?
I'll wait till season 4 to see if he's still in office.
I think America likes this guy.
Yeah.
To me, he's leads from behind. I think all he had to do was look at Jack Ryan's file and maybe call the Russian president, and a lot of the stuff could have been averted. To me, he's and a 30s guy, my personal rating. But America, after this, this dude's in the upper 50s, lower 60s. Easy peasy.
Yeah, I'll go with that only because even though the actor David Badella did star in a 2018 Fox TV series called Deep State, this is a America that doesn't really have a deep state. I don't think it's as partisanly split as our country is now.
These are great keywords you're putting in there for more viewers, for our Q viewers.
I do think that this is in America where it's still possible for a president to get above 60. In like our current real world, I'd be shocked if anyone got if Biden or anyone got anything above 60 as an approval rating. I'm like, what war just ended? What major calamity just happened to give a momentarily one time only? You just happened to call the exact right people at the exact right time after they saw the exact right news story to get that 60.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think we're going to be stuck in between. Literally, I think we're stuck between 40 and 50 from now on. I think the new guidepost for a president is how close they are to 40 is a successful point.
Yeah, 44, 45. That's like an A plus.
Yeah. I mean, then that's the thing about also in politics, it's so split, especially on the left-hand side of things. You have so many people who aren't going to give Biden a thumbs up because he's not left enough for them.
Yep.
So those unfavorables, it's weighed down by Republicans who don't think he's a legitimate president, Republicans who also just don't maybe like the guy, and then also people on the left who wish he was going farther left. So it's so hard to get a groundswell of people to give you an over 50 thumbs up. Even Trump would have to face that. I think you're going to have people on the right who would never give him a thumbs up.
Yep.
So anyway,
I heard he has to pay for a thumbs up. Is what actually there's a couple of women he paid under the table for some thumbs up.
Ben, thank you for tuning in. This has been President Bachelor,
President David Bachelor.
Season 3 of Jack Ryan, with a little bit of seasons 1 and 2 in there also, so we can say we covered the first 3 seasons.
Yes.
Thank you, President Pickett, Michael Gaston for also being a fake president.
Not Barton. Theme music, as always, by Johnny Sadoff. Artwork by Ann Hecker. You could still find us on the Twitters, on the Instagrams, on Twitter at @fake_presidents, Instagram @fake_presidents. And you can email us your thoughts, your feelings, your fears. The sum, if you add up all your fears and you think it's a good thing you want to write to us, you can at fakepresidents@gmail.com. In the meantime, you can rate, review. You could subscribe to us on any of your favorite podcast mechanisms.
I know we took a few months off, longer than we said we would, and disappeared when we said we wouldn't. We apologize. Come back.
I'm finished apologizing, Eric. Either you love us or you don't. Either you're with us or you're not. You know what? I'm not groveling for nobody, Eric.
Ben's doubling down. Not only am I not going to commit to doing a next episode, I might not even finish this one.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen. Look, this is the world we live in now. I think we all just need to appreciate it.
I'm Eric Buckman, a former political consultant turned TV writer.
And I'm Ben Oren, a former journalist, sometimes speechwriter, and all-the-time TV producer.
And today, yes.
Today, I thought we were going to harmonize that one.
Oh.
Today.
And today, I'm the least musical person you've ever met, Ben.
No, you don't have perfect pitch? I thought you were in an a cappella group in college.
No, I was, what did I do in college? I was on the student body group that organized which a cappella groups would perform in which residential hall basements.
Power of the purse. You wielded that power.
Yes.
Like a sledgehammer.
If your residence hall, if your student group, if your club wanted to hire an a cappella group to perform for you, you would come to us and we would say, okay, here's some money for you to do that.
That's not what I heard. You made them grovel. You made them come to your birthdays and sing for free.
Well, look,
I mean, this was a scandal. This was a scandal of epic proportions, Eric.
I'm going to say, look, you got to pay for play.
Listen here, heirs.
You want access to that student activity
That
fund.
that sweet Cecil Rage money.
Yeah.
If you really want to play that big show at Mass Row.
Oh wow, we're going deep on our references to Dartmouth College residence halls.
You want to come on down to the river. You gotta make something run for me, if you know what I mean. If you know what I mean, dodecaphonics.
Okay, rockapellas. But where were we? Oh, and today, are we harmonizing?
Today.